If somebody told you that you had 8 months to live, most of us would think that it wasn't much time. On the other hand, if someone told you that you had to hold your breath for 8 months, for most of us it would be an eternity. There's nothing magic about 8 months. It just happens to fit our circumstances. What if it was 8 days or 8 years? How would things be different? Regardless of which interval you choose, we will each have a response that is based on what has happened in that time interval, and more importantly, how we have either responded to it or reacted to it. What I am looking for here, I guess, is the gut, the underbelly. How I have changed and why. That is, if I have changed at all. I still get out of bed every morning, and when I look in the mirror, there are no major changes. I'm still, by the grace of God and by the grace of an incredibly tolerant and loving wife, married. I go to work or to one of a number of other activities the way I did. Granted, I now show up in some places more often than I used to, but it's not like I was never there before. And granted, I am doing some things now that I didn't do before, but some of that is a matter of degree and a different level of authority. And ultimately, there is nothing that I do that can't be done by someone who isn't ordained. In a lot of ways, just sort of looking at things, nothing much appears to have changed. What is it that ordination should have changed? What are our choices? Ministry, prayer life, family life, clerical identification, and community involvement. Wow, that ought to cover it. Maybe the easiest category to tackle is clerical identification, the title, the honest, authentic title. This one is the most tangible, perhaps, but we all know that a change in title that is not accompanied by an internal transformation has no real substance. The first couple of times I was addressed as deacon, I did look over my shoulder to see who they were referring to. But understanding the meaning of the word, and after the first couple of heartfelt questions from someone who was genuinely concerned, the title now directly finds its mark, landing like sweet bricks on willing yet still weak shoulders. So even with its tangibility, clerical ID falls off into something different, something, well, less tangible. Beyond that, for me, it gets much more difficult. There is this loss of boundaries. It's a lot like making bread. With constant kneading, the components lose their individual identity, and each becomes confluent with all of the others. Prayer, family life in all of its at times dysfunctional glory, community involvement both within and without the parish borders, and ministry, whether it's baptizing or burying, teaching or tending to the sick, all come together to become the dough of diaconia. Maybe ordination for us becomes the yeast of saying yes. Maybe what makes things really different is not what it is that I am doing, but how I am doing it. Not who I am, but who it is that I am slowly becoming. And I do mean slowly. My ability to lose track and to screw up certainly was not removed through ordination. My character defects and their consequences have become even more painfully apparent. But even the problem areas now are seen through a lens of greater purpose, greater even than my failings and misgivings, and certainly greater than my ability to grasp. So, 8 months after ordination, what is different? We certainly spent a lot of time in ponderous discernment to decide if we each had a vocation, and that has now given way to the bittersweet discernment every day of how we are going to answer that call this day. And the answer comes to us in our prayer life, our family life, our community, our title, and our ministry. There is a subtle difference between service that comes from us in a project that we choose on our own, and service that comes through us in answer to a call. The former is, in a sense, an act of the will of the person. The latter, however, is, in a sense, a surrender of the will of the person. And it's in that surrender that we are transformed. By virtue of our ordination, we are marked, branded. Warts and all, we are His in a very special way. And when He calls, however He calls, we know, somehow, deep down inside, we know. And we respond, in part joyously, and in part dragging with us that which is not yet transformed. That's what's different. It's that response of love to the one who has loved us in a special way and whose mark we bear.